What's up, guys? Part 2, good news. This is not as long as part 1. Bad news is it's still some writing, so we're almost done with this stuff. Hope you're acting good for the teacher. I see you over there on the right-hand side, white t-shirt. Make sure you act right. I can see you from Louisville. Part 2, man. Northeast part of Southwest Asia. Turkey, Iraq, Iran, all those kind of places. So we're going to get through this. You'll be done. Have a good weekend. Northeast part of Southwest Asia. Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan. All mostly Muslim. Iraq is the only Arabic culture, but most of these countries are Muslim. And we'll go with that. Early civilizations. Several of the ancient world's great civilizations came from this area. The beginning of civilization is an area called the Fertile Crescent. We talked about that. It runs from Kuwait through Iraq and kind of around up until the left, Turkey and all those kind of areas. Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, fertile soil because of the rivers. They could use rivers as transportation. A very good area to house these big time civilizations. Some of the big ones: Sumer, Babylonia, Assyria, Persia, big time empires in those areas. And I forgot the last one is Chaldea empires. Some things that they did that they're still known for, or well known for. The Sumerians developed the earliest form of writing called cuneiform, widely known for that. And the Hittites developed iron weapons early in history. And the Persians, which is modern day Iran and Iraq. I'm sure if you watch 300, you heard about the Persians, even though that movie is not completely accurate. First two divided the empire into smaller regions for better control. So basically like taking a large, massive land and dividing up into 4 sections and giving 4 governors the ability to run things day to day. That's what they kind of did. Blank slide. Here's the map. The red shows you the Babylonian Empire, but there's a green area. This is the entire Fertile Crescent. Okay, it runs all the way around through, which would be Kuwait, Iraq, up into Turkey and around Jordan, Israel, all that kind of stuff right through there. Very fertile area. Sumers are purple. Okay, so you can see these ancient early civilizations. Ethnicity and religion. Many ethnic groups make up this area. Turks, the Kurds, Persians, Arabs, Assyrians. Remember, the Kurds are a stateless nation. No country to themselves. Languages, tons of languages spoken. Turkey and Farsi are some languages that are different from Arabic, which is the most of the rest of Southwest Asia. All the ethnic groups are Muslim, but there are some divisions amongst those groups. After the death of Muhammad, Islam split into two different groups: the Sunni, which we've talked about, and the Shia, which we've talked about. Okay, the Sunni have their leader is the Caliph, Caliph, should be elected by others. 83% of Muslims, most of them in Turkey, Iraq, and Afghanistan, are the Sunni branch of Islam. The Shia leader should be a descendant of Muhammad. Most of your Iranians, a few in Iraq and Afghanistan, but most of the majority of folks are Sunni. And even in Iraq, you have issues between the Sunni and the Shia groups. Dated back to Saddam Hussein, who used to treat the others very, very harshly because they wasn't part of his particular branch of Islam. So there are divisions there for sure. Clashes over the land increased after World War I. The Kurds, again, a nation without a state, a group that occupies the area but basically lives in 3 different countries. claimed parts of Turkey and Iran and Iraq for themselves. They were promised these homelands, but never got it, and fought viciously with Turkey and others to gain their own nation, but lost. And these places prevented the Kurds from becoming that state that they've always wanted to. Shia refugees from Iraq and Afghanistan fled into Iran because of the wars and persecution by Saddam. Oil discovery in 1908 made Iran a center of conflict. Everybody realized the significance and importance of it, so they all flocked there. The British, the Russians fought over parts of Iran. They tried to get the oil and made it a big center of conflict, basically. Why'd you pause it?
I'm just going to get done.
Iran and Iraq fought over these oil fields in the 1980s, leading to a huge conflict between the two. That's when Saddam Hussein first used chemical weapons on the Iranians, killing thousands and thousands and thousands with that thing they called mustard gas back in the early 80s. So it was a nasty conflict. In the 90s, Iraq invaded Kuwait. We watched that video the other day about the fires of Kuwait. That comes from that invasion right there. And the United States and the British went over and drove the Iraqis out of Kuwait. And that's when you saw the oil fields burning. That's when that happened, 1990, 1991. The economies, lots of challenges in these economies, especially Iraq today, with them still trying to gain a foothold after the war, and with us being over there for so many years, and them trying to regain and enforce their constitution on different groups of people. Limited farmland makes it difficult. If you're not basically on the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, you can't farm, and that makes it the challenge to develop food and other things for your people difficult, and also trying to get money to export food very difficult. Money from oil and natural gas is the only thing that they have really, and they need to update communications with those power plants, and especially the water systems. Kids, I don't know if you heard that in the background, but I'm pretty sure my wife just passed gas, and the rest of this is thrown off is because she's doing that in the background. It's ridiculous. Now she's throwing water at me. It's ridiculous. Anyway, a lot of challenges in the economies, but they need to find a way to get some water there, kind of like we do in Wichita. Water's the big thing. In Turkey and Iran, both these countries are trying to modernize. Iran slightly trying to modernize, but not too long ago, all of their people tried to rise up against their government and then were forcibly put down. Turkey has hydroelectric plants to boost their cotton production using that water that they dam up to help irrigate the fields. They're trying to join the European Union, but with not too much success there. And anyway, Iran uses oil money to diversify their economy. Still recovering from that war with Iraq, but not as every year they're progressing further from that. But oil's still the big thing for them. They're trying to get nuclear energy, if you believe their government, nuclear power, which is a concern to many others in the rest of the world. They're going to use it for negative reasons, but that's another issue. Problems: Iraq and Afghanistan. Political problems have prevented economies from expanding. Obviously, in Iraq, they had the 10-year war with Iran, the Persian Gulf War with the United Nations, and they've had the war with us, the conflict with us for 10 years now. They were on strict economic restrictions after Persian Gulf. They've had tons of issues, so their economy has never really fully recovered from all the conflicts that they've been involved in. Their people lack basic goods such as food and medicine, not as much anymore in some parts because the U.S. and other countries have helped deliver more food and medicines to their people. more of a kind of acts of good deeds for the people of Iraq to help negate some negative thoughts over there. Afghanistan is very poor, landlocked, many wars over there. Wars with the Russians in the 80s, Civil War, and then we went there in 2001 and are still there today in some way, shape, or form. Always having some conflict. Very poor area. Most of the people do subsistence farming, which we know is just enough farming to feed your family. Animal herding is one thing. Their biggest thing is poppy plants and poppy seeds used for drugs. Heroin, I believe, is what they use it for, but it's a big part of what they do as far as trying to make a little money for the people. They have inefficient transportation systems. They're landlocked, like I said a minute ago, hard to get things in and out of the country in a cheap and efficient manner. There is a lot of minerals around, but they can't get them out of the ground, or at least develop them once they do. And then as they try to modernize different parts of economies and things of that nature, their government has always rejected it, especially when it's under the control of the Taliban, who is very hardline and strict in their religious beliefs. There would be no modernization under them. Almost done. Modern and traditional life, there's a large division between people who want to adopt modern lifestyles and people who want to preserve traditional ways, kind of the new school, old school thoughts of these things. And a lot of it comes down to religious preference and how hardcore are you in your beliefs. In Afghanistan, the Taliban, a very hard-line, strict belief in their Islam, in Islam, and they impose strict rules on their people's behavior. Any kind of modernization would have been met with fierce resistance and probably death to many. Men and women could wear only certain styles. The men had to have beards. The women had to be covered completely. And any kind of failure to do so would probably end up in a stoning of a woman or a beheading or whatever. Restrictions on appearing in public. All types of things. No education opportunities. All those type of things in Afghanistan. Very difficult under the Taliban. Similar groups exist in Turkey, Iran, and Iraq, but they haven't had the control of the government to the extent that the Taliban regime had control in Afghanistan prior to the United States driving them out somewhat in 2001. Lots of conflict in these areas over these disagreements and sometimes some serious political issues because of these this division between the people, between modernizing and hanging on to the traditional life. These are some Muslim ladies, not completely covered. You can see their faces. Still more of a traditional dress. Okay, that's why they're showing you that picture. Here's a more modern style. Still covered, but still have some exposed parts of their bodies and more pants and not the whole thing they were wearing. That's the end of the show, kids. Hope you got everything filled out. Turn it in at the end of the period. If you need to go back and look at a slide, ask the sub to politely, or please go back and look at the slides. This is for a grade. Have a good weekend. See you Monday.